In 2010, a friend of mine told me about a podcast. I was like, what is that? He's like, well, this show that you like, it's live stream, but if you miss the live stream, you can listen to it anytime you want. And he showed me the Apple directory. So I just started doing a solo history show where it's just talking about all the books I'm reading. And I didn't expect anybody to listen to it. I just did it because I felt compelled to. And then I started getting really weird messages. I was getting like 2,000 word essays about how this podcast is changing my life. And I was like, oh, I'm like, I hit on something here. I have zero energy to interview anybody. I have infinite energy to talk to smart, driven founders. I can do that every day for the rest of my life. He goes, dude, I was just with Brad Jacobs. You know who this is? I was like, yeah, he sent me like his new book. And he goes, you know the founders guy? I love founders. And so he starts sending me messages that he's like, I'm addicted to your book reviews. I do this episode on Brad's first book, which is How to Make a Few $1 Billion. That episode goes viral. Probably has 1 million people listen to it. I ran into him at a birthday party. He walks up to me and he goes, I love you. And I go, why? He goes, you made me famous. I go, I definitely did not. Like, most people are rat poison. Charlie had no filter. He's like, most of humanity, they're not high quality people and you should avoid them. So the main piece of advice that he gave us was,
hey, your job right now is very obvious. You need to build a seamless web of deserved trust with really high quality people and talk to nobody else.
Everybody knows that I was 35 when I met Buffett and Buffett was 28. What they didn't know is that there was a bunch of other of our friends and guys around us. We built a seamless web of deserved trust and we did deals together for decades. This is the year I'm gonna pull the trigger and I'm gonna do this new show. And we started recording in May, launched in September. I think it'll go back and be one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. I guess the important part is like, I wanna offer like an alternative to start, scale, sell. Because I've talked to so many founders that started, that scaled, that sold and are unbelievably depressed or unhappy or realizing that was my best idea. I have 4 decades of life ahead of me and I can't take that back. It's like, man, you're gonna get the money anyways, or there's other ways to do what you want to do. Like, just don't give up.
If you could define 2026 in one word, what would you want the word to be?
It can't be one word, but I am very interested in seeing how far I can take this.
David Senra, welcome to Sorcery.
Thanks for having me.
So you have a new show. It's called David Senra by David Senra by David Senra, featuring David Senra, but it's also produced by David Senra.
Actually, it's produced by Cycom.
It's produced by Cycom.
Yeah, Cycom
Who's
Media.
that?
That's Andrew Huberman and Rob Moore's media company.
How'd that happen?
Oh, that's a funny story. Rob Moore, who is Andrew Huberman's co-founder and a really close friend of mine, sent me a DM, I think, in 2022. And he's like, I've never sent anybody a DM in my life, or another podcaster a DM in my life. I just discovered your podcast last week, which is Founders Podcast. And I've never found anything like this. I would love to talk to you about it. And we wound up getting on the phone like a day later. And the first time we talked for like 2 hours. And he was just explaining like how they built Andrew Huberman's podcast. You know, this guy was essentially an obscure professor at Stanford till he was like 45 years old. And at the time, Rob was in PR. And he was actually trying to get Andrew booked on a bunch of podcasts because he was writing a book. And Andrew would go on other podcasts and perform so well. And he would be asked back over and over again. And so Rob had the idea, it's like, why don't we start our own podcast? So anyways, at the time, they had built the biggest health podcast in the world. And they were looking for other people, this is his words, that are like Andrew in different domains. And he was essentially pitching me to be recruited onto the network. So to move founders from the independent show that it was onto their network. And I was like, you're 2 weeks too late. This isn't public. But I have a verbal agreement with this guy named Patrick O'Shaughnessy from Invest Like the Best. And he just signed me to Colossus. And so we just wound up being friends. And I'd fly out to Malibu to hang out with them. We talked podcasting. And then once I knew I was going to launch another show, because I go around, as you already know this, but people listening don't, I'll go and probably collect more information on podcasting than almost anybody else in the world. So literally I flew to Stockholm 2 or 3 times this year just to hang out with the people at Spotify because I like them, they're friends, but also to learn a lot about podcasting. Just flew to New York to have breakfast with the head of podcast for Spotify, this guy named Roman, who lives in Berlin. I was like, next time you're in New York, just tell me. Literally just flew to New York just to have breakfast with them. Fly all over the country just to spend have breakfast, dinner, a day with any other podcasters. And it was obvious to me they were by far and away the best team in podcasting in terms of the product they put out, how they think about it, the quality of what they do, and then the business they built around it. And so when it's time to partner with somebody on the new show, I was like, oh, these are obviously the guys I want to work with.
And you're 407 episodes into Founders now?
Yeah, so almost 10 years, the 407 that are numbered. And then I did some really complicated things where I would like have bonus episodes and I was like, oh, it's not really the same, so don't number them. I think I have like 425 episodes I've made. And then on the new show, I think we've just released episode 7.
Okay. So it's been a whole evolution. And when you released the new show, it was September 23rd, 2025. We're about 3 months out. Today is December 22nd, by the way, if you didn't know that.
I didn't.
It's like 3 months.
I don't know what day it is.
Math. When you posted that, I quote tweeted it and I was like, a new era of podcasts has just begun.
That sounds like something you'd say.
Yeah. Well, I did say it.
Okay.
And and so, but I thought that was really fascinating because it's like an entirely new format, but like you're doing something different than most podcasters had done before when they're trying to evolve their podcasts. Like you've been really obsessed with it for a really long time. Can you just like talk about how you got into podcasts and then the evolution to today?
I think for me, I know some people use podcasting as entertainment. I just think they're one of the most like miraculous tools for education. So the way I think about what podcasting actually is, I think podcasting is the printing press for the spoken word. And so since I don't have memories before I had a love and obsession with reading. And so probably, I don't know, 5, 6 years old, I just absolutely fell in love with reading. It's a daily habit of like essentially an unbroken daily habit that I've had for decades. And it's essentially just taught myself everything that I wanted to know through books. And when I was younger, I realized, I started getting obsessed with talk radio because podcasts weren't a thing at that time. And I was like, oh, this is just like another form of education. Like if I'm not looking at a book, I can be listening to somebody else talk about a subject matter. And at the time, you'd have to like be in the car and it'd be like AM radio. And I didn't even care what the subject matter was. I was just so voracious for information. I was looking for useful information on how to build a great life because I wasn't raised in an environment where I had any mentors or saw any really good role models by any means. And so I think this was just me trying to like find, a positive example and a role model. And so I'd listen to talk radio about politics, didn't even care about politics, sports, current affairs. There was like I was like a kid and I was listening to like a relationship advice show at night. I didn't have a relationship. I don't even think I was in puberty yet. I didn't know anything about this.
Was this Delilah?
Yes. Do you know this?
She's like a legend.
Yes, Delilah After Dark.
She's the
which
only
is like
one.
Embarrassing to even say that. But again, I was a kid. I didn't know any better. And so then I remember like, oh, now you can. I remember the shift from AM radio to being able to stream it in the browser. And then in 2010, a friend of mine told me about a podcast. I was like, what is that? He's like, well, this show that you like, it's live stream, but if you miss the live stream, you can listen to it anytime you want. And he showed me the Apple directory. And from 2010 until 2016, when I started my first podcast, I ran through thousands of episodes. And I'm like obsessed with history. So I'd learned a ton about history and religion and sports and business and all kinds of things. And to the point where I was just like, man, I love podcasting so much and I'm learning so much from it. And because I've been exposed to thousands of them, I was like, I think I could do this. Like, I think I can actually make something that's interesting and better than what's out there. And so I just started doing a solo history show where it's just talking about all the books that I'm reading. And I didn't expect anybody to listen to it. I just did it because I felt compelled to. Like I want to try to make something. And then really fast, I did not have a large audience, but I started getting really weird messages. So like, you've read through, I'm sure, a bunch of your reviews on Apple Podcasts. Like, hey, normally it's like, hey, great show or whatever. I was getting like 2,000 word essays about how this podcast is changing my life. And I was like, oh, I'm like, I hit on something here. And then it took several years after that to like figure out the business model and the format and like really narrow the focus on just entrepreneurs because I was reading a bunch of different books. But I just, as soon as I started in 2016, and then I kind of snapped in 2018. I was like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And there was no business model back then. I was just like, I trust that if I work on something 7 days a week and I focus and put all my energy into it, I will figure out the business model. And so from that day, that epiphany I had in 2018, I have yet to miss like a single upload. Now what is that, 6 years later, 7 years later?
This reminds me a lot of this really iconic figure. Have you heard of Marty Supreme?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Would you say you're the Marty Supreme of podcasters?
Would you?
No.
No, would you say that I'm the Marty Supreme of podcasts?
I don't know. I haven't watched the movie.
Which part? Are you talking about the trailer? Like, what part specifically jumped out at you?
You tell me.
I think there's a part in the trailer, and I like posted some of this on my stories. And in fact, I'm friends with Chris Williamson, who's one of the biggest podcasters in the world, and he responded to the story. He thought it was hilarious. But he said, you know, this guy's playing ping pong or whatever, and he's like, you're gonna see. He's like, you don't understand. This game fills stadiums overseas. You're gonna see my face on a Wheaties box. And I clipped that, and then I was like, this is exactly how I feel about podcasting. I think it's inevitable. And Chris just laughed and laughed and laughed. But there is one thing that I definitely identify with where he's like, he's talking to Gwyneth Paltrow, which I think might have been like his love interest in the movie. I haven't seen it yet either.
I think it's his mom.
No, he was definitely hitting on her. He was
Really?
like trying to get her, yeah.
Oh, I should watch the movie.
Yeah, it's definitely not his mom. No, it's definitely not his mom because he's like, he calls her on the trailer. He's like, I saw you at the Plaza yesterday. I've never talked to a movie star before. And he's like, do you have the Daily Mail in front of you? And he's like, look, I'm in the newspaper. And she's like, this is you? That didn't give me mom vibes. That gave me romantic vibes. But she's just like, do you make any money at this little thing? And, you know, your little ping pong thing. He's like, not yet. And she goes, what are you going to do if this doesn't work out? He goes, that doesn't even enter my consciousness. And that's definitely how I felt. I was just like, I have a lot of self-confidence, self-belief. It's like, if I dedicate my attention to something, I will make that thing happen in the world. It just took a lot longer than I anticipated.
Yeah. And so, okay, going through the eras and why this is a new era of podcasting, you went from one format to another. You did a solo show, and now you're interviewing other people. And specifically for this new show, it's funny, but you really focus on like the world's greatest entrepreneurs, and that really reduces down to mostly billionaires. And some would say you're also the billionaire whisperer. And so now you're studying and you're talking to these people one-on-one and you're having conversations. So how did you figure out who you wanted to interview and who have you interviewed so far for people that don't have context?
I think one thing is I don't think about what I'm doing as interviewing. Okay. I think about like having conversations. Like one of my favorite things to do, essentially I'd work all day during the day making founders podcasts. And then at night, I'm usually hanging out with founders. I don't really have any friends that aren't founders. And we have these incredible multi-hour conversations about business and life and love and all kinds of like deep topics, like deep human topics. And I was having these conversations because founders, essentially, I would argue, has probably the most valuable audience in the world in terms of the people that listen to it. And most of the first guests, like the reason we came out with such really like high quality guests, they came from my existing audience. And I was able to build relationships with them and I spent time with them. And so if I say, hey, do you want to, I'm launching this new thing, will you do this with me? They were almost, I think every single person said yes. They were very, very receptive of it. But the genesis of this, there's two things that happened. The genesis of this was, I already mentioned Patrick O'Shaughnessy, who's played a huge role in my life. I just released an episode with him. I was actually on the phone with him on the drive over here. And he had been pushing me for a long time because a solo history podcast is not the optimal format for this medium of podcasting. When people think of podcasting, they think of exactly what's happening right now, one person talking to another. And I am also very competitive. And I think I'm really, I try to be the best in the world at what I do and everything that I do. And I put a lot of time, energy, and resources into doing that. And I was like, well, I actually would like to compete at the highest levels. Like Founders has, it's millions of people listen to it, but it is still relatively niche because it's like this crazy guy sitting in a room reading 407 biographies or autobiographies of history's greatest entrepreneurs and essentially just ripping through idea after idea for 45 minutes to an hour, where two people talking is so much easier to listen to. You just feel like you're just sitting in there with them. And it's just, there's a reason that that is the optimal format of like the medium. And when Patrick was pushing me to do this, a bunch of people said, hey man, you're having these crazy conversations. And most of the people are at dinner with me or at these events with me and they hear the conversations we have and like, I wish you would record this. And so but I was being pushed in that direction. I was like, no, it's kind of it's a distraction for what I want to do. And what I realized is like, well, it's only a distraction if I can somehow make this effortless, which is pick the people that you're intensely interested in. And then just like when you show up, we don't know what we're going to talk about beforehand. So when I go, the genesis of this is me and Patrick were in New York, and this is the first time I was meeting Daniel Ek in person. We had exchanged messages. He's the founder of Spotify. He had told me he's a big fan of the podcast. He's very nice to me. Patrick had known him for several years. He had been on Patrick's show, I think, several times at this point. So when I'm having dinner, we end up talking for 4 hours. And the dinner ends. I'm getting in the car with Patrick because we're going to go back to Greenwich where Patrick lives. And I'm spending the night at his house. And the first thing he says as soon as the door shuts, he's like, you've got to record these conversations. He's like, I've known Daniel for 4 years. He goes, first he said, I spoke 2% of the time, which is very Patrick-like. You spoke 49% of the time. Daniel spoke 49% of the time. He goes, you got more out of him in 4 hours than I have in 4 years. He's like, no one in the world can speak to the soul of the founder like you can. You have to start recording these conversations. And that was really the genesis of like, oh, wait, I can do this. It's not a distraction. I have this crazy network that comes from the podcast. I just need a team to do everything else besides I'm picking the person I want to talk to and I'm having the conversation in the manner that I want to have it, exactly like I want to have it. And the reason I say it's important to distinguish between an interview and a conversation is like the world does not need another let's interview entrepreneur podcasts. And that's not what I'm there for. When this first came out and I was like, well, I can have a very differentiated conversation because everything that Daniel is telling me or Michael Dell is telling me or Brad Jacobs or any of these people are telling me, I run it through all this information that I've learned over the last 10 years about how history-based entrepreneurs think. And so therefore I can create a very differentiated podcast. And so when the first few episodes dropped, they're like, I don't get it. Why is this guy speaking so much? And it's just like, because it's a conversation, not an interview. And this is the way I have zero energy to interview anybody. I have infinite energy to talk to smart, driven founders. I can do that every day for the rest of my life.
What do you think of the pushback on it?
There's actually an interesting philosophical topic we could talk about here. In many cases, you see this in a lot of the biographies. And then if you just, study public figures anyways, you realize that a lot of the things that their greatest strengths can also be their greatest weaknesses. And the closest I have to, I was very skeptical my entire life because I'm not a trusting person. And I think there's a good reason why I was a trusting person. I keep, I'm insular by nature. I don't let new people into my life easily. I keep everybody like at an arm's distance away. Once you break through that, like I am kind of like my hard exterior is like kind of soft. You have a little bit of this too. I do think it's very beneficial for you to be able to organize your thoughts with another person that you trust, that they care about you, that they're not transactional with you, and that they have your best interests at heart. And so there's this guy named Sam Hinkie who plays this role in my life. In addition to like a lot of my close friends, where there's a handful of guys, maybe 5, that I do trust, and I talk about like almost everything else that I'm going in my life. But this is much more of like I consider Sam like an older brother. We're friends, but like almost like a coach, even though he wouldn't like categorize it like that. He's just like, we're friends. I think you do great work, and like I care about you, and I want the best things for you. And he's worried that some of the things that got me to where I am now, if I don't change, they're gonna stop me from getting where I want to go. And so his whole thing was, you've got to learn to like trust people and like let people in. And he obviously knows that I've done that slowly but surely. He's one of them. He knows a handful of people that I actually trust with my life. And this also applies to business. Me and Patrick had a multi-year deal. No paper. It was, this is what I'm going to do. This is what you're going to do. And like, we're just going to like, we trust each other. Same thing with Rob Moore and Andrew Huberman. Like we trust each other. Like I'm clearly am changing and like letting more people in and trusting. But the answer to your question about like the response back, like what did I do with that feedback? Sam Hinkie's point to me was, a normal person, when they factor in like whose opinion actually matters to them. And so like Sam's case, it's just, maybe 60% of the opinions of other people that are not his own that matter to him is like, his family. And then, maybe his closest friends, they each get like another 5%, so maybe you're up to 70, 80%. Maybe his dad, maybe some other people. And then maybe you get to like 95%, maybe it's like 5% of the outside world's opinion matters in terms of like what he's doing and his conduct. And he's like, with you, 99% of the opinion that you value is your own. And so he's like, it got you to where you probably built, one of the best podcasts in the world because you just did it the way you wanted to do it and you trusted that. But if you don't change, you don't let the right people in, you're not going to learn enough it's going to limit the ceiling of what you can accomplish. And so I'm still at probably 96%, but it didn't bother me at all. Like I know, one thing I do know is like I probably have collected more information on podcasting than anybody else in the world, and I trust my judgment, and like I want to build things how I want to build them. And I'm fine with some people loving it and some people hating it. That doesn't bother me at all.
What have been your biggest learnings since you started?
One of the best pieces of advice that I've gotten over and over again is most people are not like taken out by competition. Most people sabotage themselves. And one thing I did not like, Founders was a very slow, it just like compounded slowly over a decade. And then it got into something that's like big and meaningful, but it felt the same day to day to me. This one was not like that at all. The launch, I had a public platform. So from day one, obviously people are going to be like paying attention to what's going on. The launch video goes viral. I released the Daniel Ek episode, which we recorded like months earlier, by accident the same week that he says, I'm going to step down from CEO of Spotify. And so like what I'm saying is what I didn't like was I just got shot out of a cannon. And the mistake I made for the first few days after that is like reading the comments and everything. And what I realized is like, hey, I need to essentially mute the world and just make the products that I want to make. Stephen King has this great thing in his autobiography where he's like, I'm not just the writer, I'm the first reader. And so I listen to every single podcast before it goes out. And so like not only did I make it, but I'm the first listener. And so I needed a way to just center myself where it's like, okay, Founders is just the books that I'm intensely interested in reading. And the new show, David Senra by David Senra, produced by David Senra, is just the people I'm intensely interested in speaking to. And what I happen to be most interested in is I'm not, we're both like around a lot of like the startups and VCs. I'm not interested in that at all. I am, in fact, my friend Justin Mayers, who, is one of my closest friends, he just made an announcement that he raised a bunch of money. And I told him, I was just like, raising money is not an accomplishment, so I'm not going to say congratulations. Building a durable business is an accomplishment. So like hopefully he uses money to build a durable business, but like congratulations is not the right term here. I'm only interested in people that succeed at what they're doing for a very long time. One of my biggest fears is like you can be successful for a year, for 5 years, even for 10 years. No, I want to be successful until I die. I don't want to lose what I'm doing. And so I optimize and I prioritize for durability over every single thing else. And so if you look at the first few guests, it's like the first guest has been building Spotify for 20 years. Michael Dell's been an entrepreneur for 41 years. Todd Graves has been running Raising Cane's for 30 years. Brad Jacobs has been an entrepreneur for 46 years. It just goes on and on and on. Michael Ovitz, for half a century. These are the people I'm most interested in speaking to because they're so much further down the road. They make me look like a child, even though I've been doing what I've been doing at hopefully a high level for 10 years. But this just happened. So I forgot. I was talking to some young founder, and I don't normally talk to a bunch of young founders. And I was trying to explain to him, I was like, you have, like, all your friends are essentially like in your 20s and you're all like doing startups. I was in New York last week, and there's a guy I'm trying to get to do his first podcast ever. He is 71 years old. He just sold his company for $60 billion. He'd been working in the company since he was 20. The amount of information that he was able to convey to me in an hour would take like a 25-year-old startup founder decades. You just can't because you haven't seen enough life. You don't know enough yet. The smartest 25-year-old is a lot dumber than this 71-year-old, man with 50 years of entrepreneurial experience. And so what I would say is like what I've learned from them is the power of I highly suspected that going in, but the power of this deep knowledge you only get that if you do not interrupt the compounding and you just let time carry most of the weight.
Sorcery is brought to you by Brex, the financial stack trusted by more than 30,000 companies, including 1 in 3 venture-backed startups in the US. Nearly 40% of startups fail because they run out of cash. Brex is literally built to help founders avoid that. Unlike traditional banks that let your money sit idle, chipping away at it with fees, Brex is designed to help you spend smarter and move faster. Their all-in-one solution combines checking, treasury, and FDIC protection into one powerful account. You can send and receive money globally at lightning speeds, get 20 times the standard FDIC coverage through their partner banks, and even high yield from day one. With same-day and even same-hour liquidity, access your funds anytime. Companies like Scale AI, DoorDash, ServiceTitan, Hims, Anthropic, Flexport, Robinhood, and Plaid trust and use Brex. Start today at brex.com/sorcery. That's BREX.com/sorcery.
So I was thinking about this because you're going after like such, I would say like a niche set of guests. I mean, I joke around, you're just interested in old people.
Kind of.
I'm interested in like obviously like a lot of tech and like emerging companies. Like we do a lot of their announcements because it's really good hook for getting the longer story out of them and everything.
I bet you're not doing like fundraising announcements next year though.
Yeah, I'm barely doing it now. Yeah. I'm barely
because
doing
the value in the term, like the value in that is,
it was an amazing product market fit over the summer and like finding that conversion
yeah,
and
you did
hitting
a good
the
job
news
using
cycle.
it to get to the next.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
Graduated from that. I will only do it now if they've raised over $1 billion. So thank you to Zach Dell for your $1 billion announcement, and same with Cy Quantum.
I love Zach. I spent a bunch of time with him. Yeah.
It was okay. So I'd obviously listened to the Founders episode on Michael Dell and then that podcast too. But in preparation for the Zach Dell interview, I listened to that. And after our first interview, because he raised back-to-back funding, it was pretty insane. After our first interview, I was like, holy crap, that is his father's son, if that's the right term.
Yeah.
They're definitely connected.
Zach's going after it.
Yeah,
He's trying to match and exceed his father.
But like you can totally tell the principles and like the values, how wholesome he is, all of that kind of stuff. So why did you choose Michael Dell as your second interview?
I think Michael Dell's autobiography is like one of the best autobiographies written by a founder ever. He's also been unbelievably like generous to me. Like he had sent me a DM like years ago, like I don't know, 2023, before almost anybody knew who I was. And he's like, I think he said like you're really good at this. Your podcasts are A+++. And I think there was like little trophy emojis. And then when I went to meet him for the first time in Austin, this is before we recorded together, we spent like 5 hours talking. And like, what is an hour of that guy's time worth? Like, it's inconceivable that he would be so generous with me. And then I brought the book along with me so he can see like he listens to podcasts, as you know, but like the effort that I put into what I'm doing. Like, this is not a game to me. Like, I'm trying to be the best in the world at what I'm doing. And for him to like, I didn't even see that he signed it. I went back to Malibu, and like 2 days later, I opened the book, and he's just like, David, I think you're a master at your craft. And he's like LinkedIn that line before. He's like tweeted. He's just been unbelievably generous to me. In fact, he might not even know this, but I have this deep multi-year partnership, and the way that came about.
Who knew that? Wow. Surprise.
You're lucky I didn't wear a shirt. I have tattoos.
I don't know what that is, so it's okay.
Yeah. The way this came about, though, this was very interesting, is one of my very close friends is one of the founders. We were friends way before we worked together. And he called me one day, and he's just like, dude, I was at Michael Dell's house. He didn't know we were friends, and he couldn't stop talking about your podcast. He's like, I know 10 to 15 billionaires personally that listen to your podcast. We've got to find a way to work together. And this guy has a bunch of stuff going on, so we just went through the list because, like, now I'm talking business podcasts. So this might be like 17 hours. But basically, for these kind of audiences, is like you need a high LTV, high customer acquisition costs, and price discrimination. And so, like, when you apply that to this list of companies, it was obvious, like, it was the perfect fit. And then we did this like deep partnership, and it could not have gone better than what has happened in the last like year and a half. And we have a multi-year, like, I'm with them for years and years and years. They're the presenting sponsor of the new podcast. I was just in their office with Rob Moore, and Rob asked Eric Glyman, the CEO, he's like, what's your podcast strategy? And he just pointed at me, like, David, that's our podcast strategy. And so Dell's just been, I just can't believe like somebody like that, one of the greatest entrepreneurs ever, started a company in 19, I think he's 61, still running it to this day, unbelievably generous with me. And so I just DM'd him because I admire him. He's like one of my heroes. Like, I don't feel like deeply admire what he did. And when I see like the scope of what your life can be, I'm like, I want that. I want what he did. Like, this is incredible. I don't want to jump around. I don't want to start, scale, sell. Like, I want to do the same thing forever and be really good at it. And then we can talk about some of the lessons I learned from him. And so I just shot him a DM. I was like, would you do this? He's like, yeah. Immediately, he's like, let's do it. And then the crazy thing is, we flew with an entire crew because to jumpstart this, like, these guys are so hard to schedule with. these
Yeah.
masters of the universe kind of people. I was like, I will come to you at a moment's notice. And so we went up setting up in his office, in the conference room right next to his office in, I think it's Round Rock, right outside of Austin. And what I love about Michael, this is important too, is the only filter I trust is time. And I like people that have the same people around them for a long time. Because again, we're in the game of startups and VC is just so dirty. There's so many liars and sociopaths and just very dangerous people that I've seen, in the last decade. I do not like a lot of this behavior. And so I always look like, does this person have people around them for a very long time? And so I think Dell's head of comms has been there for like 26 years. His assistant has been there for 25 years. I heard her name Stephanie. She's so sweet. And I was sitting here talking to her before recording, and she goes, I don't know who you are, but you're obviously very special to Michael. I go, why are you saying that? And she goes, he doesn't like attention. He does not. He could be being on a million podcasts every day if he wanted to. Anybody would want him on their podcast. He goes, he says no to all of these requests. And if he does say yes, he gives them 30 minutes. He goes, he blocked out 2 hours for you. And so again, like he's just, I'm deeply proud that somebody like Michael would find value in my work. And then I just respect him. And so when I get to talk to him, I get just essentially get to sit at the feet of like a master and just be like, I just listen. I just shut up and listen the whole time.
Well, so what were the key lessons you learned from him?
The beauty of like the infinite game. And so his whole thing, like, at one point he had more money than the market cap of his company. And it's just like, if you read his autobiography, it's like, how is one person this good at every single thing that they do? And so I think the most important thing from him is, let me give the advice he gave me before we recorded. This is like probably, 60 days before we recorded. And I've told you this too, because like you're off to a fantastic start. Most people are not taking it up by competition. Most people sabotage themselves. And so, he was telling me story after story of all these people that, they were making $500 million a year in revenue and they were doing all this other thing. It's like they just sabotaged themselves. And sometimes it's, drugs. Sometimes it's they go to sleep on a win and wake up with a loss. So like, oh, I can like chill now. I've made it. It's like, no, you've never made it. And so I think like making sure you're not doing anything to sabotage yourself is one of the most important lessons. And then if you really talk to Michael, it's like what motivates him. He is a very generative person. It's not, he does not have a negative fuel source. He looks at everything like a giant puzzle. And it's just like, well, how do I build a new AI company? How do I reimagine, this company has, 60,000 or 100,000 employees. Like, how do I do this? How do I make it so that the company can survive this next technological revolution? We talked a lot about like what happens when you start making money. Like he's been making money since the 1980s, So then it's like, oh, well, then I should probably learn about this investing thing. Like, what do I do? He starts this crazy merchant bank. I think that's like one of the most important things. If you can kind of step back, you're going to have crazy problems in any business. And he's just like, oh, that's not a problem. That's a puzzle. And I think reframing that in your mind, it's like problems are inevitable. Like, just take a step back and be like, oh, okay, well, problems are there to be solved. Like, we can figure out how to solve them. So what do we do next?
That reminds me a lot of your conversation. I said conversation, not interview, by the way, with Brad Jacobs, because he is also all about embracing problems. By the way, amazing, like, what he put you in his new book. What was that?
Okay, so Brad Jacobs is a funny guy. Probably the most energetic person I've ever been around. He's 68 or 70 years old. So Brad Jacobs has started, I think, 8 separate billion-dollar companies. And for a long time, he was like my LinkedIn reply guy.
What?
Yeah. So I got to tell you the story. This is a hilarious story. So the first podcast he ever did, I think he was interviewed by Patrick Shaughnessy on Invest Like the Best. Okay. And they recorded Patrick's got a studio in New York. And he's got a studio in Greenwich. And obviously.
Shout out Connecticut.
And Brad lives in Greenwich and tries to avoid the city like a plague. So he recorded in the Greenwich studio. If you go upstairs in this like house, this office house that Patrick has, the entire upstairs attic is like looks like a library, and most of those books were covered on founders, or not most, but like half the books were covered on founders, and so he has like references to founders everywhere. And Patrick calls me after that happened, and he goes, "Dude, I was just with Brad Jacobs. You know who this is?" And I was like, "Yeah, he sent me like his new book. Yeah, this is years ago, so this isn't the book you're talking about, which we'll get to in a second." And he goes, you know the Founders guy? I love Founders. And so he starts sending me messages that he's like, I'm addicted to your book. I think he calls them book reviews. I was like, that is kind of funny. I kind of do a book report for a living. Like what you do is like in elementary school, I do that for a living. And so we start talking, and he invites me to go to breakfast at his house. And I had this email newsletter that I send inconsistently, but I should, where essentially what I do is take the top 10 sentences or paragraphs of every book that I read and just send that out, right? As like a, here's these 10 ideas. And then if you want to listen to the episode, here's the episode. I get to Brad Jacobs' house, and it was my personal website at the time that now has been updated. He printed out I've done this for, I don't know, a couple hundred bucks. He printed out my entire public website. And I get to his house. First of all, he's one of the craziest houses you've ever been to, as you can imagine. We're going to have breakfast. It's me, Patrick, Brad's comms guy, and Brad. And the table is like 40 feet long. And I was like, what is going on? Who else is coming to this breakfast? And next to Brad, as he's like sipping his coffee, is my website. It's like this. It's like 12 inches thick. And he's just going through and reading them. And I had met a couple people who work for Brad, and they told me that he makes them do that at the office. So he like prints them out, and they have to like go through and read all of these. So I do this episode on Brad's first book, which is How to Make a Few $1 Billion. That episode goes viral. Like probably has 1 million people listen to it. And if you're in PE, everybody knew who Brad Jacobs was. But my audience is like entrepreneurs and business owners and investors of all over. So then he becomes like, I ran into him at a birthday party, my friend Rick's birthday party in Miami a few months later. And he walks up to me and he goes, I love you. And I go, why? He goes, you made me famous. I go, I definitely did not. Like your book, first of all, great title. Second of all, you're a wild man. Like you're this crazy character. Like you're so differentiated. You can't help but notice him. Even if you don't like him, you're just like, you're going to note, like you're going to pay attention to that guy. And so then when I had breakfast with him, he's like, yeah, everybody says I should write another book, but I only had one book in me. And I see him a few months later, he's like, I wrote another book. So I was like, all right, send me an early copy. Like, I want to read this. So he sends it to me, but he doesn't tell me what he puts in it. And we'd already recorded an episode of the new show. So I saw him a bunch of times. I was at this event at the Four Seasons of Miami Beach like a few weeks ago. Like I see him kind of frequently. And I'm going through the book to make an episode of Founders on it. And I'm just like reading. He's talking about sources of capital, right? Because the first 2 chapters is all about what you just said. It's like he had a very unhealthy mind, and he found the tools necessary to transform an unhealthy mind into a healthy mind. Because he's like, if you have an unhealthy mind, you're not going to reach your potential. And you can't build a great company if you're so messed up in the head and you're stressed and you can't handle what's going on. So he's like, well, I need tools so I can operate from a place of like abundance and love. And he's like really into like meditation and everything else. Mm-hmm. And so I'm reading, then the rest of the book is how to do roll-ups, how to do acquisitions. And he's done 500 different acquisitions in his lifetime. He's raised, I don't know, 50 billion of capital. Like, I mean, his resume is freaking incredible. And he gets the sources of capital, and then he talks about the fact that I like being a public company. I think these companies are staying private too long. There's all these other benefits of being a public company. And then we get to the point where he's just like, his new company started as a public company. And he's like, I'm reading the book, not knowing this is about to happen. And he goes, and then I found a different source of capital, which was 2 of the top 20 shareholders in the new company came because David Senra profiled me on his Founders podcast. And I'm like, what?
Oh my gosh.
So he had told me that in private, but the best, our mutual friend John Coogan said that was the best podcast endorsement of all time. So when I went to record with him in his house in Greenwich, we traveled like a 5-camera setup. It was like, we have an army that comes with us. And these aren't business guys. These are just like camera guys and like podcast guys. And he goes, I love David. I raised $750 million out of his audience, and I didn't even have to pay him a fee. And he laughed. He like slapped his knee and laughed. And I don't know anything about investment banking, so I call a friend of mine. He's like, oh yeah, that saved him quite a bit of money. And so that's what he's talking about. It's like 2 people didn't know who he was. They heard my episode on his first book. One put in $400 million, one put in $350 million, and then joined his board. And they told Brad how they learned about him. And so then he put in the book.
Damn.
Yeah.
Gonna have to ask for a fee next time.
No, I would never. No, because I just want to be friends. I don't need anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have like 2 tracks in my mind right now that I'm like spinning off of this. One, the fact that he is like so obsessed with founders, and that is like a common theme that I hear through these conversations that you're having on the new show. One of them was with Michael Ovitz, and like I think the first time you met, you were on the phone, or you were with Patrick or someone like that, and
Do you want me to tell you a story?
yeah, tell me the story.
So there's actually an interesting. Ovitz has given me really good advice too that I think is really important. We'll come back to it, but like you need people in your life that tell you the truth, because if you think about Ovitz, I mean, when he was in contact with like 200 people a day when he was building CAA. He's probably talked to thousands of people over his lifetime. Spent a bunch of time with maybe, I don't know, 500, 800, probably even more than that on like the dinner level or like a few hour level. And, you know, he's basically got 3 friends. And one of them is one of my closest friends, this guy named Rick Gerson. And I asked Ovitz, I guess I'll tell you that story first before I go to how I met him. And I was like, you know, I always want to know why people choose who, like, Ovitz is a legend. Mm-hmm. When, you know, an absolute legend. Like, how do you choose who you're going to let into your life? Who you're going to give access to? Who you're going to see over and over again? It's not just like, oh, yeah, we had lunch one time. It's like, no, you've built a friendship with this guy over 2 decades. Like, what is it about? And so I was asking about this, and, you know, obviously some level of intelligence. It's like, well, Rick's really smart. He's really serious. But he's like, he's one of the few people in my life that'll tell me the truth. And what Ovitz was saying is like, it could, some people are so hypersensitive to criticism that if you tell them something negative, right, they might push you out of their life, they might discount it, where he's like, I know he'll tell me the truth and he wants the best for me. He's not saying it to like hurt my feelings, to insult me. Like that, we're way past that. And I think that's really important. So me and Rick go to this same spot. And we have breakfast all the time together. And his phone was on the table, and we're just sitting there talking about the stuff we talk about, which is, you know, entrepreneurship, investing, reading books, like the same stuff, that history. We're 2 giant nerds, and we just read all the time. So these are the basis of our conversations. And I had known who Ovitz was. I did an episode on, he's like episode like 55 or something. Like, you're talking about 8 years ago. I think Michael Ovitz's, Who is Michael Ovitz autobiography is one of the most important entrepreneur autobiographies ever written, because he puts in all the bad stuff, all the regrets, all the mistakes he made, all the way he destroyed relationships. Just, it's very valuable. You essentially read that book and you have a guy that has 4 decades of experience that's very wise saying, hey, I did this idea worked out really good. I did that, don't do that. That caused a lot of pain, and I kind of sabotaged myself there. So his phone's on the table, it rings, and it says Michael Ovitz. I'm like, oh, shit. I was like, I know who that guy is. And I don't even know if I knew they were friends at that point. And he picks it up on speakerphone. And Rick's like, hey, I'm actually sitting here with a good friend of mine. You might know who he is. His name's David Senra. He does this podcast called Founders. Pause. I listened to 4 of them yesterday. That's the first time I ever heard Ovitz's voice. And like, I listened to 4 of them yesterday. He was in like St. Bart's. And he really meant it. Because a lot of people, me and you have gone through this before. Yeah. We've talked about it in the past. You meet people who are always like, I love your podcast. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you do. And some of them,
I just saw a clip. Oh,
yeah, some of them definitely don't listen. Some of them do, but like everybody wants to flatter you. So it's like, okay, well, thank you. No, he starts like rattling off like stories from the episodes. He was talking about Cornelius Vanderbilt and all this other stuff. And so then we just became friends. We've had like, he's, again, somebody that has taken an interest in me because he gets value in my work and just gives me guidance. Even if I don't listen to what he says, in many cases, like sometimes the one time he got upset where like, he's like, I invite you to dinner because I have, he didn't say, but basically like had a plan for my life. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, do I have any input here? And he lays it out. Now, to his credit, this is right before I was already working on the new show, but I didn't announce it. And to his credit, I correctly identified the weaknesses in my previous business model, how to take it to the next level. He had repped Charlie Rose, which he didn't even know was my basis for what I'm doing. Like I was going to do this generation's Charlie Rose. He lays it out for 20 minutes, exactly what I should do, which almost verbatim with the plan I came up with. And I was like, Michael, it's pretty impressive. I'm already doing this, and I explained it to him, and he goes, "Oh, so I didn't get you didn't need this dinner." I was like, "Dude, stop! Like, I just want to hang out." And then the thing about him is, I just want to keep him as a friend because he's like offered to like help me and rep. I'm like, Michael, you're a shark. You forgot I read your book. I know who you are. And the reason he's taken an interest in me is because he's like, I know all the other podcasters. He goes, there's nobody like you, and me and you are the same. Mm. And that is like, that's really nice. And that's exactly why we will not be working together.
What do you think is the biggest mistake of most podcasters?
They don't actually love it. So the reason goes back to like I go around and collecting like all the information on podcasters is like, one, this is a market, an industry full of second-rate talent. It started out as excessively low status, and you've had a bunch of conversations on podcasting, and I think, especially,
I know I'm nervous to talk to you because I feel like you're going to tell everyone.
What do you mean?
I feel like you go around collecting information. I'm coming from the VC world. Everyone is like really transactional.
Yeah, but this is another. Okay, so there's a couple of mistakes people make here. There's some podcasters that view podcasting as like zero sum or like fixed sum or whatever the term is. It's the most positive sum thing in the world.
Totally.
I'm more competitive than any other podcaster on the planet, and I don't treat any other podcasters as competition. It's just like you're not thinking about this clearly, and when you do that, other podcasters know, and then they stop talking to you because you're a weirdo.
Yeah.
And so the analogy I have there is like it's much more. I would prefer us to all be like filmmakers, and so like I've done a bunch of episodes on filmmakers like George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Quentin Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, Jim Cameron. What is so fascinating is so many of them got their start together. They spent a lot of time together. They were sharing ideas together. So like I think the day that Star Wars came out, George Lucas was like driving around with Steven Spielberg. And I think it was the same thing like the day Jaws came out, they were together. And they would preview each other's movies, and essentially they just shared information, because if you go watch Jaws one day, and that doesn't affect George Lucas because you can go watch Star Wars the next day. If you listen to one of Molly O'Shea's podcasts today, and then later on you listen to mine, like you're not taking anything from me. So what are you guys doing? And I just think it's a lot smarter. I just went, I was off the grid for like 2 days with like 6 of the biggest podcasters in the world, and nobody was weird. Like we were talking about revenue, ads, how much you're spending for equipment, how you're thinking about this, what your frequency is. And like at the end of those conversations, everybody gets better. It doesn't make a difference. So one of the earned secret that I had was I went into this because I loved it. And that a lot of really talented people didn't, because they saw it as low status. I don't even think about the outside world. So I didn't even like, I know I'm not autistic, but
I wasn't saying you were.
I saw your face. But like, I just was so obsessed with what I'm doing and loved it that it didn't I just thought, okay, if I love this thing, I can transfer my love and passion and infectious passion for this to like everybody else. And the secret that I think you've discovered as I like share more information with you is just like, oh, it's like the reverse. It's like the highest status thing you could do, because I get access to people that the startup founder raised $100 million. They wouldn't even talk to them.
Yeah.
Like I get access to the craziest people in the world because they benefit from my work. And it's not like a transactional relationship. Like they invite you to their house, you go on vacation, you have intense conversations with them. You literally become friends with them because you have the same interests, and they're like you make yourself easy to understand. So I think one is most talented people don't go into it because from the outside it looks low status. I would like to encourage that that mistaken belief as much as I can. 2, the people that do it, they're second-rate talent, second-rate work ethic, and 3, they all quit. And so I think when I think about you, you're one of, I don't know, you're easily in the top 10 of like the hardest working podcasters that I know. Like, and you're in it. I think you just said, you tweeted like you're 4 months into this full time.
Full time, yeah.
Yeah, so
crazy.
Like, it's obvious what you should be doing. It's like just keep doing what you're doing and don't sabotage yourself and don't stop. And part of that goes back to the Brad Jacobs things when you're finished. It's like keeping. You're gonna, as you keep getting. I was just on the phone with Andrew Huberman about this morning, because I'm going through this huge inflection point, and like people run into me and know me now, not even from Founders. They don't even know what Founders is. It's from the new show, and having somebody like Andrew in my corner, I can say, hey, I've been through what you're gonna go through. Like, here's the pitfalls you have to avoid, and here's like what to expect, and like just be careful with this. So your biggest thing is like managing as a way higher profile. And your stuff can be real spiky. That carp thing took over the entire internet. And so your thing is like...
Until Bill Ackman tweeted, "Can I meet you?" Or "May I meet you?"
Yes, there you go.
That ruined my spike.
But your thing is like really obvious. Is I do think you realize how great a job this is. And your biggest thing is just like what I always tell you. You're just laying bricks. Like, don't try to think what's going to happen next year. It doesn't matter. It's like, what can I do today? I'm going to make another podcast. Cool. I'm going to lay another brick. Then I'll record another view, lay another brick. I'll get better at, my lighting, my cameras, the way I promote my podcast and do everything else. And that's all you have to do. You just don't interrupt the compounding. Like, your path is so clear. Me and Patrick were just talking about this on the way over here because he was asking what I was doing. I was like, I'm going to do Molly's show. And
Did he ask if you were going to walk around?
No, but he did think that was like, again, you did something that was differentiated. And I did tell him, I was like, now I think everybody's calling her like, give me the carp.
Yeah, can I have this carp special, please? I'd like a walking tour.
But remember, you sent me an early copy of the carp episode.
Yeah.
And I watched it, and I was like, that's your best episode. This thing's going to rip. Do you remember this conversation?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was obvious. I was like, oh, this is like very interesting. It's going to help with retention. Like, and it was fascinating.
Yeah, between that and the clips and then the viral things off of that, Eliana over there, who's amazing, the Palantir team is just amazing. They think we probably easily reached 50 million impressions from that 2-week period. So it's probably more now, but it's just crazy. And by the way, a good differentiation between all of this is like, and everything that you're saying about creation is more on the artistry of it. I'm not trying to create things to go viral. That's a cool like after effect of just a natural, authentic personality. I have a weird personality. And sometimes I'm like super sarcastic. And then I pretend I don't know that Jack Altman is related to Sam Altman and it goes viral.
This is, you did that like birthday tweet where you were talking about like, you've been working like so hard at building sorcery that you barely like paid attention to your own birthday.
Yeah,
do you remember this?
Forgot. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I remember reading it, and obviously like we were having conversations about your podcast, and I think like you correctly identified like the most important part, which is I think it bases some of the conversations we had. Just like podcast goes back to your previous question, what are the mistakes that podcasters make? It's like they don't think about differentiation. You're a founder. Your podcast just happens to be a podcast, or excuse me, your product just happens to be a podcast. I don't understand why more podcasters don't think like founders. Yeah. And so if you just say, hey, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm building this business, I love it, this is my product, what standard advice would anybody give you? It's like you need some form of differentiation. So what is the differentiation for a podcaster? Being who you actually are. You are like a goofy, funny, like awkward person. I'm saying this in like a nice way. I told you that, and it's in that tweet where it's just like show more of yourself.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna be a public figure. You have to have the confidence to be like, okay, this is who I am. This is actually, I was having private conversations with a bunch of other like high profile founders recently around this. Like there's some founders that do excellent job in having like cult-like followings, which I think the best podcasts are definitely, Founders has a cult-like following. And part of that is you have to show your authentic self. So like Elon, tons of people hate him, but tons of people love him because of his authentic self. Carp, tons of people hate him, tons of people love him, but he's who he is all the time. He says crazy, stuff. Dana White does a really good job at this. And I think podcasters should be the same way. It's like, man, I'm not for everybody. There's no value in building like a very vanilla audience. They have to be there for you. And so I think the one form of differentiation for podcasters is just like be who you are. And you can, therefore, it makes your job easier because you can be who you are forever. But if you're playing some kind of role, like, or you have some kind of mask, then you're going to slip up one day. You're like, totally. And then people are like, oh, she wasn't who I thought she was.
Mm-hmm. And then I don't want to comment too much on other podcasts, but some of them have just like negative bents to themselves because they see other things and they're like, I don't want to do that. And here's what I'm doing because I'm going to get into dangerous territory if I go further on that.
I would ignore, I would ignore, I think it's like Weekend has a line where it's like the competition don't even listen.
Yeah.
Like same thing.
Competition is for losers, Peter Thiel.
I know, but like I think, yeah, there are some podcasters that are just like paying attention to every little thing everybody else does. Like I want to know how you're building your business, how you look at it, like the philosophy behind what you're doing, just like a founder. Like I want to know like why you're doing what you're doing and how you're doing it. I think that's very fascinating, but I don't care what other podcasters are doing. I'm just going to do it the exact same way that I want to do it.
Okay, speaking of business, you mentioned you want to build a show like Charlie Rose. What does that mean?
So I always think about this, it goes back to differentiation. So let's back up. I think episode number 6 of the new show was James Dyson. That was one of the best days of my entire life because James Dyson, his first out of all the 400 plus biographies of entrepreneurs I read, his first autobiography called Against the Odds is by far my number one recommendation. Everybody's like, give me like a top 10 list. I was like, no, I don't have a top 10. Listen to all of them over and over again. But if you want one, go find this hard to find book and read it over and over again. I've read it, I don't know, at least 5 times. I read his second autobiography at least twice. I read his History of Great Inventions, this encyclopedia that he wrote. I've watched all his interviews. He gave me the motivation to not quit when I was going through a very difficult time. 5.5 years of struggle before I built the podcast into something that was like sustainable, and then it grew from there. He did 14 years of struggle. And the whole time I was like, this guy did 14 years of struggle, 5,127 prototypes. He is failing his entire life, and he didn't give up. I can like persevere through this. And so it was very important. He was the number one person in the world that I wanted to meet, and he couldn't have been better. So sweet and witty and impressive. He owns he's 70 years old. He owns 100% of one of the most valuable companies in the world. And he doesn't care about money. First of all, he's like made way more money he'll ever spend in lifetimes. He just cares about building the best products possible. And so his mantra is differentiation and retention of total control. And that's exactly what I try to do with founders. It's like, I own all of it. I turn down crazy acquisition offers, crazy investment offers. It's like, nope, it's differentiated and I retain control. And so when I think of podcasts, if I'm going to start a new podcast, I want to like look at the podcast landscape and I want to see where's the white space. I'm not going to do anything else that somebody else is doing. And this is like, we have mutual friends in John and Jordy with TPBN, and they will tell you, David.
What is it called? It's
I always say it wrong. TBPN. They say I say TPBN.
TBBB.
Yeah, whatever. Whatever. I don't even know what the acronym is for. John and Jordy Show. So I thought John Coogan was a generational media talent, and
he's exceptional.
And I've told him this for years. We've been I've been trying to help him. Not that he needs my help. Trying to find the right format. Because when I found him and he was doing documentaries, I was like, dude, your documentaries are incredible. He did this video called The History of Silicon Valley. And I had read at least by this time 40 books on that topic. And I learned stuff in that video I didn't know. So that was like, oh, this guy's serious. Because I go through every kind of creator. I hate that word, but every kind of podcast or documentary. It's like, I didn't know. They're so bad that the good ones you can't help but notice them. And so I was like, dude, you should move to podcasting because documentaries take too long. The business model sucks. You have no idea the kind of business that you can build over here. And, you know, he not many people know this. He did this podcast. I won't even say the name because I don't want people looking it up because I don't think he's proud of it. It was like almost like a modern version of Founders. Solo show, deep dives on an individual. I flew with him to Greenwich, tried to convince Patrick to sign it. Patrick said no.
Oh, no.
I was like, you're crazy. We got to sign this guy. And then he just went through a couple different variations. And one time he asked me to do a show with him. And it was going to be a show covering like tech news. I was like, I don't care about tech news at all. I don't pay attention to what's going on in the world. I read history and I make podcasts. Like, I'm the wrong person for this. And so the white space there was like, and he knew this too. I was like, somebody should build a Pat McAfee of business. You can take an idea that's working somewhere else and just apply it to a different niche. And I was like, you live stream it. You have a co-host. You can do call-ins. Essentially, if you look at what TPBN evolved into, it looks a lot like the Pat McAfee of business. And no one knew how lucrative these shows could get. Pat McAfee's presenting sponsor for 1 year, they paid $30 million. So a single company for a single ad slot for a single year to a single podcaster paid $30 million. So it's like, okay, well, that's just one. How much money do you think that show makes? He's like, he's got 15 hours of content that he's making every week. He could have, the thing's going to print cash.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was differentiated. And so it comes out and obviously did what it did. You have somebody super talented, super differentiated, so someone that takes it very, very seriously, doesn't do anything else. And I'm not, I am surprised at how big it got, but I'm not surprised that they were successful. And so I was like, well, what else is missing? And forever, like Charlie Rose, younger people know who he is, but everybody, like, he was the place where the elite people in the world went to have intelligent conversations. And their conversations usually were an hour long, 5 days a week. And so my idea was just like, where are all the elite people in the world capable of having intelligent conversation multiple times a week? That is what I'm going to. Right now we're doing twice a month. Then we're working up to one a week. And then I want to do multiple times a week. And I was like, all I have to do is like, this isn't rocket science, David. Just build this generation's Charlie Rose. Now the difference is he was much more of an interviewer, where I have, I think, a very unique data set in my head that can allow me to produce something completely differentiated. So it's like, interviews not interesting to me, like I just told you. It's like, but having conversations with these elite people and learning from them is very, like, I don't do drugs, but the way I feel after I have these conversations, it's like I'm high on life. I can't sleep after these conversations because these people fill me with such energy. And I'm just learning so much in such a short amount of time. And so, yeah, the idea was like, okay, well, who else could make Charlie Rose? It's not there. We agree it's not there, right? Okay, so it's not there. So who else could make it? And it's like, it probably had to be an existing podcaster. And so you go through like, who's a business podcaster? And there's not that many that actually people pay attention to. And it's like, oh, no one, by the time, I'll be so far ahead, by the time no one will be able to catch me.
So what's the business model behind that?
I mean, media, you need frequency. And so like, Founders is a crazy business. People understood like the business behind it, but I'm always going to be constrained because to make an episode of Founders, I have to read an entire book. It's 52 books a year is still a lot. Maybe I can make 70, but I can't do 250. I can't do 200. Where conversations, I could have a different conversation every night, and people are going to find it interesting. Even if we record, and I think we're going to get better on the editing, but let's say record for 2.5 hours with almost anybody on the planet that's an interesting entrepreneur, there's going to be an hour of interesting stuff in there for sure. So it's just a frequency. And then what we're understanding, and this is where I think we have this advantage as business podcasters, which is the business that you've built around your show, is when you have a high value audience, right? You're not going on number on screen, go up. That's how no other podcasters do it. Where if you're selling on a CPM basis, it makes a difference. Mm-hmm. So I will make proportionally more money if I have 2 million people than if I have 1.5 million. In business podcasting, it's who does that number represent? Michael Dell listening to your podcast is worth 10 million normal Americans. Like, so most of the companies that come to us is like, do you want these kind of people to know that you exist? And then what happens is it helps with recruiting. It helps with customers. It helps Brad Jacobs pulled $750 million out of my audience. Helps with enterprise value because your audience is full of people that want to do deals. They want to find new great products to buy. They want to discover new talented founders that they didn't understand. They're looking for investment opportunities. There's all kinds of interesting, unintended, positive externalities that happen just getting in front of these people. And so like when I have these, and I do like multi-year partnerships with most of my partners, it's just like, it's never like, oh, I'm going to guarantee you X impressions. It's like, when these people know that you exist, good stuff's going to happen. And they get it right away.
Turing is training the next generation of AI with tasks that require real expertise and real-world judgment. That's why companies like NVIDIA, Anthropic, Salesforce, and Gemini partner with Turing. Turing builds realistic reinforcement learning environments and data systems based on real operational traces, the kind of infrastructure frontier labs need to train superintelligence. Visit turing.com/SOURCERY.
It's amazing how many people have done deals off of the episodes I've done too. Like, it's just, you would not expect it.
I would expect, and listening might not expect it.
No, the people, the audience wouldn't. We have some incredibly powerful people. It's just amazing. Is it true one of your guests tickled you?
No comment.
No comment. And so, damn, you found the button. We have a secret founders button. No comment. Okay. So you do something people rarely do nowadays. You read physical books. How long does it take you to read those books? And is it true you use a sword to highlight them? I'm sorry, a ruler.
Yes, it is true that I use a ruler. There's a great line where I think it was one of Steve Jobs' biography where it's like, a great product is better than it has to be. And I think about that line all the time. And what that means is like, sometimes the customer, you're going to put so much effort into things that they may not even notice, but they can feel it.
Yeah.
It's like you evoke emotion. And Steve Jobs was famous for this because like he would insist that the inside of a computer, which you couldn't even open up, had to be beautiful. And they're like, Steve, no one's going to see this. He's like, yeah, but I'm going to see it. And Walt Disney was like this, and you'll see a lot of the same reoccurring patterns throughout history. They're just so obsessed with the quality of the product that they're making that they just can't help themselves because it's offensive to them that it goes out any other way. And so it'd be a lot more efficient. I'm kind of anti-efficiency when it comes to my work because I do think there is almost like this sounds really foo-foo, but like there is a spiritual connection I have to what I'm doing. I deeply love it. It reminds me much more of like being like this is Founders now. When I'm recording with other people, it's different. I feel like a solo songwriter. Like just because I'm making it. Founders is made by one person. Like I pick the books, I read the books, I record, I edit, I hand edit the transcripts. This is like ridiculous. Everybody tells me you should not be spending time doing this, and I feel like I'm better. The product is better because I pay attention to all these like little details and spend a lot of time. I spend a lot of time doing them, and so it would be much more efficient if I just read Kindle because then all my notes and highlights are there. I'm not doing arts and crafts over here. So like I sit down with a book. This is what it looks like. It's like I'm doing an arts and crafts project. I sit down with a physical book, pen, ruler, not a sword, Post-it notes, and scissors. And that is how I make them. I should have brought one today. I didn't even think to do this. And it takes a long time. And then I have to transfer them. So this goes back to a great product is better than it has to be. So then I lucked out in doing something all the way back in 2018 that now is paying unbelievable dividends today. Is I decided to put every single one of my notes and highlights into this giant searchable database called Readwise. Mm-hmm. And so now I have there's I think 30,000 highlights and notes in this database that I can search. So I'll be reading something today and I'm like, oh, this sounds like something Walt Disney did. Let me go search and find it. And then I partnered with Readwise and they built this other tool just for me. Other people can access to it now, but it started out just for me where all my notes, highlights, and transcripts for every single episode. And I have a AI system that's just trained on just that. And so I'm querying this all the time as I'm making new episodes. So to compete goes with like competitions for losers. Say, I'm going to do exactly what David does on Founders. Okay, well, I'm 407 books ahead. I'm going to keep doing this every day. So that means like if you're never going to catch me. But even in that, then you have to like I'm creating all these tools and all this technology and all these different ways to do it. It's like if you don't have access to that either, it's just going to be nearly impossible to be able to at least duplicate what I'm doing. So I read like 25 pages an hour. Like I'm not a speed reader. And I'm reading with the intention to understand it so well that I can turn around and teach it to somebody else. And the teaching actually makes me learn better because there's so many times when I'm speaking out loud about something I thought I knew. And I'm like, what you just said doesn't make any sense. You don't even understand what you're talking about. So you got to stop, pause, go back. And then even this morning, I was like rereading past highlights. So like that's my form of practice. Like an NBA player will, Steph Curry's putting up 500 threes a day in practice. I'm rereading past highlights to remind myself. I'll listen to past episodes all the time. She'd be like, we forget that we forget. I'm like, I read the book. I made the episode. I listened to the episode before it came out. It's been 2 years. I forgot more than half the stuff in there. And so it goes back to like, what is your organizing principle? It's like, well, I want to be the best in the world at what I do. I think there's a great line. Did you ever read The Almanac of Naval?
Yeah.
Ravikant? Okay, so there's a great line in that book where he says, in the age of infinite leverage, being at the extreme of your art is really important. And I change that to being at the extreme of your craft because it's power laws all the way down. And if all the people in the world say, hey, I'm going to learn from history's greatest entrepreneurs, I want to be the default choice. And if you are, I think I am the default choice, but if you are the default choice, you get 99, why are you laughing?
I'm not laughing.
Okay. You get all the rewards. It's not, so there's a great example of this where there's a skater named Tony Hawk who's by far the most famous. He's by far the most famous skateboarder. And I was listening to him on a podcast one time. And he got paid to perform. He had his own skateboard company. He had all these deals that he was endorsed by. And he said something like 90% of his wealth came from the video game, Tony Hawk Pro Skater or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And, it's hundreds of millions of dollars flowed to him as a result of that. And it made me think. I was like, oh, how much did the second, most famous or second most well-known skateboarder make in his video game? And the answer to that question is, who the hell is the second most famous skateboarder? Now, I'm sure in the world of skateboarding you might know, but the general population, the answer is, I don't know. It's very important to be the extreme of your craft. So I'm looking for any of these little edges that I can keep doing and compound over a long period of time.
A couple things. One, I learned from Charlotte that learning style of reading something and reciting with someone else is key to absorption and understanding. And I think she's in high school, so she is reading Macbeth and these different history books. And I was just in Poland and I was visiting her, and I was like, well, I would love to. I'm a nerd. I would be happy to assist you in learning these subjects. That would be really fun. And two, in your Dyson interview, this was a hilarious there are some funny moments in some of these things. One is in the Brad Jacobs one where you're explaining him, and then you're like, actually, you know what? I'm gonna stop. You can explain. And then in this Dyson one, you're going through the interview, and then at the end of the interview, you're like, you know what? I can't help but notice this, but your hands are huge.
I said that
you got
on
thick hands.
I forgot about that.
And it goes to the physicality of making things and why you take so much time and practice, and the physicality of printing out even your transcripts for founders and reading them and fixing them and all that kind of thing. And then with the books and reading and underlining and using swords and all this weird stuff that you do. But yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know if that's a compliment.
Yeah, was that a question? I was
No.
Thank you. You said it's interesting. Good. I'm trying to make interesting things that people want to listen to and hopefully learn from.
Some of you may not have heard this yet, but our sponsor Public just launched something called Generated Assets, and it brings AI into investing in a way I've honestly never seen before. Here's how it works. You type in an idea like AI-powered supply chain companies with positive free cash flow, or defense tech companies growing revenue over 25% year over year. Public's AI then dispatches a swarm of agents that scan every single US stock, evaluates them, and instantly builds a custom index around your thesis. What really stands out is how clearly it explains why each stock is included. And before you invest, you can even backtest your idea against the S&P 500, so you're making decisions with real context, not just guessing. And beyond generated assets, Public lets you invest in stocks, bonds, options, crypto, all in one place. They'll even give you an uncapped 1% match when you transfer your investments over from another platform. If you want to build a portfolio that actually reflects your thesis, visit public.com/sorcery. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in the description.
You've picked a particular niche to go after to interview. So you're going after, there's only 2,000 to 3,000 billionaires out there, really, really successful people who've made it to that mark. One of the challenges with podcasts is scheduling. And so you're niching down even further because you like old people. And so how do you plan on scheduling all these? I'm sure you have a list of people that are in queue. So how do you manage all of that? And who's up next?
So I have, like I said, I think the best
especially if you want to increase the cadence.
Yeah, well, okay. So I think I have the best team in podcasting. And so Rob Moore is the one, and the team are the ones taking care of all this. So hey, how do we get this person? Assuming I can't access them myself. And actually, you were helpful in this domain because I don't even think about, again, I'm just focused on the work. I don't think about the external world's interpretation. And you had said this some offhand comment one time. You're yeah, he obviously knows who you are. I'm why would he know who I am? Because I don't think of what I'm doing, and I forget that millions and millions of people listen to Founders every year, and now the new shows we're gonna add millions and millions more. And so what I realized is oh, if I want to get to somebody and I just say, if I DM them, there's highly likely I could just start with the people that follow me on Twitter. In terms of almost all the top founders do. And so one way to do this is you can obviously go through their PR, their comms people, which Rob's an expert at. But I'm just I know somebody who knows them, and I'm hey, can you just ask that guy if he knows who I am and tell him I want to talk? And so far I've done this, I don't know, like 6 times. And these are like public company CEOs too. It's just like, turns out every single time they're like a fan of the podcast. And so it's just frequency. It's like realizing that was the biggest mistake we made, was moving way too slow on the queue. It's like, let's record one person and then we'll move on to the next person. It's like, no, we need to be talking to like 50 people at a time. And then I'm ready to go whenever. I have an idea of what I wanted to talk to them about anyways. And then they'll just drop in when like their schedule allows. And in many cases, like we've had to reschedule 3, 4, 5 times. Like stuff just always comes on. So yeah, I think the biggest thing I have to take care of next year is just vastly increasing in like the top of the funnel to make sure that I have the people I want. Second thing, they're not all going to be old. Okay. It's not geriatric. 2, they're not all going to be billionaires. Like there's a multi-billionaire right now that is asked to get on the podcast, and I started researching the guy. I thought he was a little creepy, and I said no. So it's like, I'm not impressed just because you have a lot of money. Again, if you go back to what we said at the beginning of the conversation, Founders is the books that I'm intensely interested in reading, and sometimes they're deviate. They're not founders at all. Like I did this episode on Haruki Murakami, or a bunch on Winston Churchill, or like there's lessons we can take away from them, but they're not the typical founder. I was just super interested in reading about them. Turns out if I'm interested, the audience is too. And then the new show is just who I'm intensely interested in speaking to. And yeah, in many cases, they're going to be doing what they've been doing for a long time. That doesn't automatically make them old. But I am interested in like people that have a singular career. And if they haven't developed a singular career yet, there's something about them that is very unique to them. I'm interested in talking to them. So it's just like not a net worth thing, not even a how long I've been doing. I originally thought, okay, maybe I'll talk to, you should be doing it at least like 10 years. And I think most of the people I will talk to have been doing it for at least 10 years. Because again, I'm not into startups. I'm into building a durable business. Creating a startup, raising a bunch of money, and going out of business is not an accomplishment. And that is the vast majority of these people. Like go back, I used to take notes on all the podcasts I listened to. And I had like this huge, started as an Evernote notebook, then it was a Substack. And you go back and pick all the same startup. There's a lot of the same startup podcasts. 2020, 2021, 2022. Make a list of the guests. And this is how I realized I was wasting my goddamn time. Make a list of the guests and then see how many are still in business. It was shocking. They're all gone. I'm not interested in hearing some startup founder espouse how great they are when they're already dead and they don't even know it. So I do think keeping some kind of time as a filter I'm going to do, but it's just come down to like, I find this person interesting, or I want to know how that person thinks. And I think we can have a very, very interesting conversation. But no, there will be several guests under 50.
Okay, well, something that's worked for me is making the Sorcery Top 100 list. It's not top, and it was not ordered in any particular
I know.
number.
Me and you both know it wasn't in the right order.
Why?
66. You put me as six. What was the title? Top 100.
The Sorcery 100 guest list, something like that.
Top guests you want lists.
Yeah, it was it took me like, originally it was like 50 people, and then I was like, oh no, this one.
So I wasn't even going to be on the list if I'm 66. You had to add another 100 or another 50.
Yeah, maybe, I think so.
Okay, you and I both know that
and
is
then
not true.
I had to add 2 more on top of that because I completely forgot. Never mind. But anyways.
Okay, so first of all, I want to clarify the record. That was a lie. You know that you and I both know I'm not the top 66.
Well, you're not top 60s. You have made it within the top 10, by the way.
Okay,
that list.
I will accept 1B to Ivanka Trump's 1A.
That's Alex Karp.
Okay.
You can be 1C.
No, I will accept 2.
2?
To Ivanka's 1A.
That's
Karp 1B.
Elon Musk.
It doesn't matter. So then I'm 2B. I don't care. I'm not going lower than 2B.
Okay.
Yeah. And honestly, the Karp thing is just because I do think your episode with him was really excellent. But I
was
retract
incredible. Yeah.
I retract
1B.
my statement. I'm 1B behind Ivanka.
What?
Ivanka's the only one I'm taking a back seat to.
Ivanka's good.
She's the best.
She's really good.
She is one of the sweetest people I know. One of my favorite people by far. Unbelievably well read.
Yeah.
Like a kind soul. She's legitimately one of my favorite people I get to spend time with. She's incredible. She's going to do the new show too.
Can you put in a good word?
We'll see how the rest of this interview goes.
Oh, God. Okay. Anyways, on that subject.
Were you going somewhere with the top 100 list, or were you done there?
No. I was just a suggestion.
What I told you when I saw that list is really excellent advice that I got from Daniel Ek, which was, he's like, you're really easy to understand. He was talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you're really easy to understand, so therefore you're really easy to help. And I think one of the smartest things you did was making yourself very easy, like you're very legible online, where it's like, I'm going to organize this list, I'm going to publish it on my Twitter feed, and immediately you book carpet, what, 7 days later?
No, less than 3. Like, I got a call that day, like, hey, I think we got something. And then by the 3rd day, it was scheduled.
So there you go.
Insane.
I think if you can do more of those things to make you easy to understand and therefore easy to help is like really smart.
Yeah, the tricky thing with that, though, is doing it in a tasteful way. I'm not exploitive.
How would it be exploitive?
Well, I also, to drive off of serendipity a bit, actually building relationships with people and going the warm connection way, I'm like over capacity right now. Even with the Anderl episode, that was fucking awesome. I thought I was just going to interview one of them. I heard back, and no, all 4 founders are going to be in town on Monday. You're going to do an episode with, I'm like, in what capacity has anybody interviewed all 4 founders and gotten a tour at Anderl? Like, it's insane. And like, Palmer was on my list. Trey Stevens was on my list twice.
Oh, there you go.
I didn't mean to. I totally meant that. But yeah, it was
It's the universe helping you.
the universe helping me. But yeah, I'm like over capacity for a bit, which is like fantastic. And so I'm just gonna be at the whims of.
What does overcapacity mean? Just because you've recorded so many episodes?
I have so many in the back and so many in the backlog. I'm running through editors. I'm burning them out, and like it's just.
Wait,
yeah,
how are you
it's a
burning
lot.
out your editors? Are
'Cause
you like
we
a hard
just-
taskmaster?
I don't know. Am I, Brett? No comment. Hit the button. One of the things I like to talk about, so one of our sponsors is Brex, and they're all about performance, spending smarter, moving faster, intelligent AF, finance. You've probably heard of them. They're very, very popular.
They've definitely heard of me.
And so on the topic of performance, I think a lot of performance comes down to like who you surround yourself with. You think very critically of this, and so I'd be curious of your answer, but I think it comes down to who you surround yourself with, who you admire most, and like who's a mentor to you. So I'm curious for you, like who are those people for you?
I think that your entire life is who you surround yourself with, is by far, not only from like, okay, so the first people you recruit are obviously like who your company turns out to be. And so that's why there's a great book called In the Company of Giants, which is published in 1987 by 2 Stanford MBA students. And they wind up, as a result, they just happened to be in Silicon Valley at the time during this huge, the first internet boom. And they interview 16 technology company founders. Also interesting to see how many of those technology company founders wind up disappearing. Okay. On this whole theme of like trying to dominate for decades. But one of them, they got Michael Dell's in there, Bill Gates is in there, but Steve Jobs is in there. And, being MBA students, they didn't know any better. We're like, hey, Steve, like you're running your company. So obviously like you don't have any time to recruit now. And he's like, what? It's like, are you crazy? It's the most important thing that I do. And he gave this great, and he's like, it's very important at the very, very beginning of your company, but it continues to be important. So he's like, when you're picking your co-founder, it's like, you should choose wisely. Why? Because it's 50% of your company at the time. And then employee number 10, still super important. It's 10% of your company. And so there's a great line where Steve would say that the person he learned more from management than anybody else was Ed Catmull, the founder of Pixar. And Ed Catmull talks about this. Like he would go around giving talks. He's like, hey, what's more important, people or ideas? And he's like, people always got this question wrong. It's so weird to me. He's like, they said ideas are more important. He's like, no, it's obviously people because ideas come from people. And so he has this great line to illustrate this. He's like, hey, if you give a mediocre idea, if you give a great idea to a mediocre team, they'll screw it up. But if you give a mediocre idea to a great team, they'll either fix it or they'll throw it out and come up with something new. And Brad Jacobs, you'll just see this over and over again. It's like the quality of people around you is your entire life. The best piece of advice that I was ever given came from one of the best pieces of advice I was given came from Jared Kushner. who's a good friend. I actually talked to him like a few hours ago. And this is also what I've told you one of the first times we talked.
That's Ivanka's husband, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Is constant refinement of association. And Jared's one of these people where it's like, he will tell you the truth. If he likes you, well, first of all, he wouldn't spend time with you if he didn't like you. But like he says stuff to me that if people hear that, they're like, damn, like that might even be rude. It's like, no, like he's a very direct person. But he's saying that because I know he wants like my best interests and like he wants me to do well. And he said he's like benefited hugely from your podcast. So like his whole thing is like he's seen me in environments where he's like, these people are not good enough for you. Mm-hmm. He's just like, you have built this is what he told me. He's like, I know all the elite people in the world. They all listen to your podcasts. And he's like pushed me on a lot of different things and in a very like direct but like truthful manner. And I think it's really, really important. And so the other day, I'll tell you one of like my close friends and mentors, because really I don't really have a mentor. I guess Hinky would be the closest, but like it's more like a coach. And such like my very close friends that are like the people that I actually pay attention to, and like I'm pretty ruthless with getting access. Like I'm not on the scene. You can't access me. You can't just like call me up or get in touch with me or anything like that. Like I am deliberately like evasive when it comes to that, because I already have as many friends as I could handle. And I'm sure because of our jobs, you're going to meet interesting people, and I might be able to add one great friend that's going to every year or two or something like that. But it's like, even if I added none, I'd be fine. And so one of my closest friends is, legit genius. I won't say his name. He doesn't like to be talked about publicly. You'll find nothing about him online, but everybody that needs to know in tech knows who he is, and he's highly, highly respected. And we were on the phone the other day, and this is, again, somebody I know has my best interest, and like we have a legitimate friendship. And he knew that I was about to spend time, or that I was spending time with another somewhat high-profile person. And he's just like, all I want you to consider, and again, like no one's like, you need to do X, Y, Z. They talk in stories, or you have to kind of read between the lines. And so he's like, I would just consider like why that guy like leaves like a trail of like chaos and discontent and broken relationships everywhere he goes. Like, why is his co-founders of his first company hate him? Why co-founders of this company hate him? Like, why is this person saying these things about him? And he's like, you should just see like who he has around him that's been around him for a long time that talks positively around him. And they're both super successful financially, but my friend has all these wonderful relationships and people who do almost anything for him. And I'm probably one of them. And this guy doesn't. And his whole point was just like, man, we're doing this. I mean, they're both billionaires. He's just like, we're doing this. It's like, because we like the game and it's fun and like we love it. But at the end, like he said this line that was great. He's like, but your life is your relationships. He's like, this guy doesn't have any. Like, what does that tell you? It doesn't matter how much money he has. And I've met some super successful people. And it's like, where are your friends, dude? Like, where are your friends? It's like unbelievably sad. So I think part of it is just because we are mimetic by nature. Like, you are going to pick up on the habits of your friends that are around you. And you have to be no one does this, by the way. 99% of humans do not, they give shitty people access to them. When I think of like, if I could only have one mentor that was dead, it'd be Charlie Munger, who I was good enough to, incredible. I got to go to his house and have dinner with him for 3 hours before he died. And his line on this is like, the advice that he gave, I was there with two other entrepreneurs. And his whole thing is like, most people are rat poison. Charlie had no filter. Like, he's like, most of humanity, they're not high quality people and you should avoid them. So the main piece of advice that he gave us was, I distilled it into this maxim called go for great, because his whole thing was like, hey, your job right now is very obvious. You need to build a seamless web of deserved trust with really high quality people and talk to nobody else. He goes, everybody knows that I was 35 when I met Buffett and Buffett was 28. What they didn't know is that there was a bunch of other of our friends and guys around us. We built a seamless web of deserved trust, and we did deals together for decades. And he's like, at that time, he's like, most of them were dead, because Charlie's 99. I think Buffett was like 92 or 91 at that point. And so the go for great thing was, problems are inevitable. Okay. You live long enough, bad shit is going to happen to you. That's a direct quote from Charlie. So he's like, your job in life is to build relationships with great people. He says, wisdom is prevention, right? Great people don't solve problems. They avoid them. High quality people, and I see this in my life, they avoid them. Most of them, wisdom is prevention. It's one of the best maxims. So high quality, you build a relationship with high quality people and then get into a good business and stay there. He was very adamant about that other part. Stay in the good business. Stop jumping around. He goes, if you surround yourself with high quality people and good businesses, obviously, they have way fewer problems than bad businesses, or great businesses, rather. Great businesses have lot less problems. So he's like, your job is like, if you surround yourself with great people and you get in a great business to stay there, he's like, that avoids most of the problems you're going to have in life. And like, that is your job. Go for great. Surround yourself with great people and just be in one great business. It's all you need to build wealth for generations. And so I think about that like all the time, where I do think I already am in a great business. I will continue to like build this into a great business. I think that one of the best things to launch off media is more media, like I just did with launching the new show off of Founders, and then just having insanely high bar for who I spend time with. But I would say like most of them, they're not even like I could name names. Most people wouldn't even like really like know who they are. They're just like really good, high quality, smart, good people that have some kind of body of work that they can point to, and that's how we became friends to begin with.
That's a good answer.
Maybe I picked the right profession.
I don't know. We'll follow up on that in 3 more months.
Yeah.
You'll be 6 months into this new job.
Yeah.
Founders ship faster on Dell. Set up payroll for any country in minutes, hire anyone anywhere, and get visas handled fast so you stay focused on scaling. Dell takes care of onboarding, HR, IT, EOR, benefits, and compliance so your team can grow without borders. It's why more than 37,000 fast-growing companies trust Dell to move fast. Visit DEEL.com/sorcery. That's DEEL.com/SOURCERY.
As we enter 2026 and we leave 2025, first, how would you define 2025 for you?
Best year of my life.
Why?
I just cannot believe, like, first of all, the thing about podcasts, again, I know we keep going back to this topic. What a lot of people don't understand about podcasts is they're unique experience generators. And so the amount of things that I was able to do, the people I was able to meet this year, the places I went, the amount of activities that I got to do is like, you couldn't buy access to them. There's no tickets, there's nothing. It's like you had to be invited into this by really high quality people because they respect you and they respect like your body of work. And so just I don't look back a lot. In fact, I just had lunch with a friend of mine in New York, and that's exactly what she told me. She's just like, you don't seem to like take inventory of like your life or how unusual it is, because it's just like, oh, I did that, next podcast. And I do think there's value to just focusing on today and then doing the same, trying to like push the ball forward or lay bricks the next day. But I probably should get better at, at least like documenting, like go back in my camera roll. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot I did that. So I definitely need to get better at that. But like the relationships I built, the experiences I got to have, and then just Founders just absolutely, it was already crazy last year, but it's like just absolutely ripped. And then the new show, like I could not have, we literally couldn't have had a better start than what we did. And then some of the stuff because we go back and forth on podcasts, but like I can't name like some of the people I got to spend. Literally, like there's like 3 people in the world, my top 3 list, and I got to spend one-on-one time with all 3 of them this year, and only one I've recorded a podcast with so far. And it's just like, how did this happen? Like sometimes I'm sitting there, I'm like, who is this person sitting across? Like this is insane. And then for all to be, in many cases, fans of what I'm doing. It's like, you didn't even know I had a top 3 list. How is that possible? And to spend time with them and to learn from them, it's just been absolutely crazy. And then I really do like think I'm so glad I made the decision. It's like, hey, this is a year I'm going to pull the trigger and I'm going to do this new show. And we started recording in May, launched in September. And I think I think it'll go back and be one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. If
you could define 2026 in one word, what would you want the word to be?
It can't be one word, but I am very interested in seeing how far I can take this. And I just said I spent a bunch of days with 6 of the biggest podcasters in the world. I was talking to Patrick on the drive over here, and his whole thing was like, I'm so glad that you do what you do, in the sense that you go around, you like collect all this information, you just essentially don't think about anything but podcasting. And he's like, because I'm not interested in it at all. I like one podcaster. He's like, I like you. He's like, I don't actually like podcasters, is what he was telling me. And he's like, and if you weren't doing what you're doing, I'd feel like FOMO, like what's going on in the world, where I could just like call you and you could just like data dump on like what's going on with me. And I text, this was like 2 Saturdays morning, it was like 7 in the morning. And I text 2 members on the team of the new podcast. And I was just like, we're going to like take this as far as it goes. Like, I don't know where we can go. I just know no one else is going to take it farther than us. And so the way I would describe it is like, I don't want to get to and definitely not the end of my life, but certainly not the end of next year without knowing, like, I want to push it to the limit. And I don't mean to break. I don't mean to like, I mean, like, I want to see what I'm actually capable of. And I think that's the biggest thing, where like, I don't have any doubt that I found my life's work. I know that for sure. So I don't have to there's no introspection there. Like, but I want to do this as best as I possibly can, to the point where like, I didn't leave anything where it's like, or I didn't like half-ass it, or yeah, I want to push it to the limit. Me and John and Jordy text screenshots of that song, Push It to the Limit, from the Scarface. It was in their launch video. Yeah. Remember when they did the helicopter and everything? Push it to the limit, that song. And I think that is just, we just texted back and forth, because it's like, that is just the anthem. I think they're, like, if you saw their interview they just did, like, they're very much in line with this as well. It's just like, let me see how far I can take this. I'm very interested. And I really hope, I just want to avoid anything that doesn't allow me to do that. That would be, like, push to the limit would be my answer.
What would you hope the biggest takeaway from your listeners would be with this new show?
I think really, man, like, just I think a lot of the media that entrepreneurs are consuming is just like, it goes against their incentives. There's this really, really well-known founder. So there's a bunch of people that don't really do many podcasts that I've been trying to convince to do podcasts, and that is really hard. And I had dinner with one, by far the most intense person I've ever been around. And I was like, man, he's got all this stuff, like, in the dinner, like, you just couldn't believe the stories he has. Like, the company building knowledge that's in his head, that he just doesn't share it with anybody. It's insane to me. And I was trying to be like, hey, this is an act of service for the next generations of founders. I go, dude, they're all listening. All the content that entrepreneurs are listening to are made by VCs. And he interrupted me. He goes, real entrepreneurs don't listen to VCs. And so,
is this Travis Kalanick?
I don't know who it is. So but the I guess the important part is, like, I want to offer, like, an alternative to start, scale, sell. Because I've talked to so many founders that started, that scaled, that sold, and are unbelievably depressed or unhappy, or realizing that was my best idea. I'll never have an idea that's good. I have 3.5 decades of life, 4 decades of life ahead of me.
Yeah.
And I can't take that back. It's like, man, you're going to get the money anyways, or there's other ways to do what you want to do. Like, just don't give up. So, like, I think the alternative is, like, can I present an alternative path where it's like more like Michael Dell? This is an infinite game. This is a giant puzzle. You can constantly reinvent yourself and reinvent your company over and over and over again. And you're going to be so much more satisfied when you're 60 or 70 than you made $100 million when you were 35, or whatever the case is. It's like, a lot of people have money. Like, it may be a small percentage of the population, but a lot of people are rich. How many people can say they built something that's truly great? A much smaller percentage of the population. That's what you want. I think Jeff Bezos said it the best. He's like, you want to build a body of work and a company that you're proud to tell your grandchildren about. And your grandchildren are not going to care that grandpa 40 years ago sold a company and now just sits in a rocking chair and does nothing. Grandpa probably won't even live because retirement is fatal. Like, you need to do something. So yeah, I think the alternative is just like, hey, why don't we, like, try to build durable companies and, like, stick with them and, like, do it forever? Like, what else are we going to do?
It's funny you mentioned Michael Dell. Like, the first thing I thought of was the past couple conversations I've had with Zach, and the fact that they're literally setting out to build a multi-generational company. Same thing.
Yeah, I wonder where he got that
I can't
idea from.
imagine. I don't know. I should ask.
Yeah.
Okay, David. Well, thank you. This was awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Cool.
Hey, it's Molly. If you enjoy our interviews, check out our newsletter, sorcery.vc, where we deliver a once-a-week top deals and tech headlines email, and also go deeper on our podcast interviews. Subscribe to Sorcery today. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen. Link in description to sign up.